Assassin's Creed franchise is one of the darlings of this console generation. As one of the most successful new IPs, it built a huge fanbase out of the gate, but yearly updates have diluted its cachet. The IV drip of updates from one year to the next hasn't helped either, but there is hope that the final chapter of the current story arc will return it to prominence. Does Assassin's Creed Revelations deliver on its name?
First you were Altair, a stoic 12th century assassin from the Holy Land. Then you are Ezio Auditore, a wealthy Italian with charisma and a talent for revenge.
After a far too brief synopsis of the first several games, you find Desmond trapped on Animus Island. He had begun to lose his grip on the real world in Brotherhood, and here we see him completely shut off from reality. Gone are the constant jumps back to present day, and the story takes place almost exclusively inside the digital dimensions of the Animus. In a coma, Desmond must piece together memories to return his conscience to his body. Then there's Ezio Auditore. The star of the last couple games returns to a leading role as he attempts to find 5 keys hidden in 16th century Constantinople by the first game's protagonist Altair. Many years older and a full-on graybeard, the keys are needed to discover the secret to ending the centuries-long war between the Templars and Assassins. Much older, wiser, and surprisingly a little bit softer, we see a more human side of Ezio in Revelations. There's a core set of characters he interacts with, and things are kept tight and easy to follow. The game does a solid job of making some sense out of the story within a story, and fans will be satisfied with the ultimate outcome.
But luck deserts me when I play. I hasten to the door.
The core design of Revelations will be familiar to anyone who played Brotherhood. The open world of Constantinople is littered with things to see, places to go, and people to interact with. Despite the distractions, the path forward is never obscured, though participation in side activities is more essential than ever.
It is a small price to pay to preserve what you have built here, no?
Just like Brotherhood, a big part of the game is assembling a team of assassins to do Ezio's bidding and restoring Constantinople to a thriving city. All of this is governed by money. The economy has been out of whack in the last couple games, and it's not much better here. You'll still have more money than you can spend as you patiently wait for campaign landmarks to unlock new weapons and armor for purchase. Businesses are cheap to restore, which only adds to the money deposited in your bank at timed intervals. Recruiting assassins is just like the prior game. Once they've joined your cause, you can send them on missions to conquer foreign lands that net you cash, and upgrade points for their weapons and armor. You can also call them in for random spot attacks throughout the entire campaign.
What a finisher!
Mission variety has also been a sore point in the past, and while you still get way too many fetch quests and trailing missions, some new elements have been added to the design to keep things fresh. In Brotherhood, you were tasked with taking over Templar dens, and while it returns here, there's a twist. If you do not revisit areas you've conquered and clean them out of Templar influence, they'll attempt to retake the den. This initiates one of the game's biggest surprises, tower defense. More than just a novelty, you'll return to it time and again as the enemy never rests. It's handled fairly well, but it feels out of place inside a game like this.
You'll find many ingredients for bomb recipes scattered throughout the city.
Bomb crafting is another major addition, and as you plunder chests or loot dead enemies, you're given ingredients to build custom explosives. With around 300 different combinations possible, it's plenty deep, but with the exception of a few missions, it's hardly mandatory. We've enjoyed experimenting with them to see how they affect enemies, though. The final new addition is Desmond's Journey. As you collect memory fragments hidden in the campaign, you can return to Animus Island and play through first-person platforming levels using a building tool to create solid ground. It feels a little like Portal, and it's completely irrelevant to finishing the game, but it's another curious touch. While the campaign can literally last you dozens of hours if you decide to give in to the distractions, the length of the core narrative falls right in line with prior games in the series. There's a definitive pattern to follow. Ezio finds a book, the book leads him to one of the 5 Masyaf keys, and then the key unlocks a playable level where you take the reins of Altair. This pattern repeats throughout. The Stab or Be Stabbed multiplayer returns from Brotherhood with a few tweaks. Set inside the Abstergo Templar training program, as you level up you unlock cinemas that give you some insight into the organization. Where you had to earn all your abilities before, you're given some right out of the gate this time. It doesn't help much though. Higher level players have a distinct advantage, particularly in the team-based modes, where things like invisibility give them a decided edge. There's a plethora of options including variants of deathmatch and capture the flag across 9 different maps, but if the perks aren't ruining the good time, it's the skill-free instant kills. It's a fun diversion, but it still feels like empty calories. Assassin's Creed already has the parkour thing down, and that hasn't changed here. You essentially need to hold 2 buttons and steer Ezio and he'll handle the rest. His traversal is supplemented by the hook blade,
You've never seen one?
a hidden blade with a curve on the end that allows him to slip down zip lines and even assassinate from them. It also comes in handy during especially long jumps, as it gives him an extra few inches of reach. It's integrated well into the level design, but minus a few conveniences, it's not especially necessary. Hand-to-hand combat has always been thrilling to watch, but not as exhilarating to control. With counter kills allowing you to essentially walk through every combat scenario, there hasn't been much incentive to explore the possibilities. That's been changed a bit here. While many enemies will still fall to this technique, there are several types that will shrug it off and force you to master parries and kicks. It keeps the combat grind from becoming too severe and shows the player that there's actually some depth here if they dig.
Run! Keep my head down and run!
Set-piece moments have been pretty muted in these games in the past, and while Revelations does not fall into the context-sensitive trap, there are many more moments of awe than in prior games. It doesn't approach Call of Duty or Uncharted levels, but we've been left with a lot more memorable moments this time around. We also appreciate the platform-heavy, enemy-free tomb raids to secure the 5 keys, as they provide a nice balance to the rest of the action. The rest of the gameplay falls somewhere in the middle. Using bombs and projectile weapons still feels a bit archaic, as you're essentially relying on the game's auto-lock to target. The tower defense controls are compromised by Ubisoft's insistence on keeping Ezio in the frame at all times. The loading times can also be quite brutal, especially if you find yourself in one of a couple missions where you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing.
Watch out!
Perhaps most importantly, you're given a bigger variety of gameplay types this time around. While things were beginning to feel a little stale in Brotherhood, the series feels revived here. Some don't stick around long, but they're always a welcomed respite from traversal and swordplay. Just playing as Altair as he ages adds a cool element to the interaction.
Follow me to the castle, and spill no blood.
A magnificent sight.
It is a work in progress.
This engine is beginning to show its age, but it's still a solid-looking game thanks to its art style and commitment to authenticity. The costuming is period perfect, and it's still a wonder to see an old society like 16th century Constantinople alive once again. The visuals do slow down at times, and there's a little more cut and paste with the buildings than normal, but this can be explained by the actual architecture of the city during this time period. Animation is still the game's forte, and while the engine does spew out a ton of polygons at a time, the little things like fire and explosions look dated.
Oh, il diavolo in persona! Stay back!
Duccio, a pleasure.
Jesper Kyd returns to compose the soundtrack, and it's up to his usual high standards. The Middle Eastern-tinged tunes are extremely subtle at times, but the audio always manages to ratchet up at all the right times. The voice acting is at the top of the class, with realistic dialects that can only come from hiring actors who actually live in these regions.
You are the man I long to meet. Renowned master and mentor. Ezio Auditore de la.
Revelation's presentation is a little ragged at times, but it still manages to impress on the whole.
Come, my boy. Ready your blade. This battle is not yet won.
Assassin's Creed Revelations delivers with the most varied, creative, and complete game in the series. It does tread a little too closely to Brotherhood, but a concise, interesting story with significant payoff helps mute its similarities. If you're a series fan, your dedication will be rewarded, and even those disappointed in the prior couple games should give it a shot based upon a lot of long-standing issues being rectified. The engine is a bit long in the tooth, and some of the content isn't entirely worth exploring, but if you're looking for an unforgettable top-shelf action adventure, heed the creed.